White House is confirming President Trump held a second previously unacknowledged conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin at this month's G20 Summit in Hamburg, Germany. The discussion came near the end of a formal dinner for leaders and their spouses, hours after a more than 2-hour formal sit-down between the two leaders. President Trump took to Twitter to push back on Main Street media reports describing the dinner discussion as, quote-unquote, a meeting and a private one, tweeting this: "Fake news story of secret dinner with Putin is sick. All G20 leaders and spouses were invited by the Chancellor of Germany, press knew." On he goes. The fake news is becoming more and more dishonest. Even a dinner arranged for top 20 leaders in Germany is made to look sinister. Joining us right now to weigh in, Townhall Editor, Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich. Katie, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Good to see you. Welcome to D.C.
Thank you so much. Well, I mean, you see those pictures of the G20 sitting there at a table, and you see Putin sitting next to the First Lady, Melania Trump, and then Donald Trump, the president, walking over. How is this possibly a secret meeting?
How dare the president go sit next to his wife, who is seated next to Vladimir Putin? I mean, the biggest question is, who made the seating chart here? Look, the White House didn't disclose this because they didn't believe that it was a private meeting. It was clearly on the schedule as a meeting between G20 leaders. And this reminds me of back in the summer of 2016 when the media tried to nail now Attorney General Jeff Sessions for allegedly secretly meeting with the Russian ambassador after an RNC convention event that was a public event for lots of people who he just passed by with the Russian ambassador. Look, the Trump administration hasn't been transparent on a lot of Russia issues, but when it comes to the media, when they repeatedly jump the shark on issues like this and say that this was a private meeting when it was clearly a dinner between many world leaders. Donald Trump didn't just talk to Vladimir Putin that night. He probably talked to a number of other people, and we're not hearing about those reports.
Well, this is the part that I don't fully understand. Was this a conversation at the table which everybody had, or did they go aside and have a side conversation?
According to the Post, they were sitting at the table together.
So I think the question,
the secret meeting.
Well, the question,
it's so dishonest.
Well, the question will be, and I think this is where you will see the White House having to respond, is they call it the TikTok. So what was the TikTok that happened during the dinner? And I think that that's where it might go. I mean, Katie, I would like your thoughts to see. Don't you think, in terms from the communication standpoint, the White House having to talk about maybe more in detail about what...
Well, and that is one of the complaints in the New York Times story and the Washington Post story, is that there's no official record of what was said. There's not an exact official timeline. There's some discrepancy between what the White House is saying and what the reporting is saying. The reporting say it was an hour-long conversation. The White House is saying, no, it was much shorter than that. It was just banter.
Well, if he's just walking over to him on the table, how is that? He stood there for an hour? Was he standing up?
He sat down. So Melania Trump, the First Lady, was seated next to Vladimir Putin. So again, who sat her next to Vladimir Putin? So he went over and sat between them. So he happened to have this conversation with Vladimir Putin. Now, according to the reporting, other world leaders who aren't quoted, the only people who are quoted on this are people who weren't there, thought it was a very strange exchange. But I think that the White House could be helpful in the sense of providing more details about what was said, what kind of conversations they were having to really prove that it was nothing more than just a dinner meeting.
So one of the concerns was that the only other person involved in that conversation was the Russian translator. So there was no one on the American side keeping a record of it, being...
Because it wasn't a formal meeting. But, I mean, can I say to you, well, who else did he speak with?
Right.
Did he see anybody as he walked to the bathroom? Was he, as he was going back to his room, did he see the Italian, president? Did he see, I mean, this is ridiculous.
But remember that the press has been focused on what the handshake was between the president and Putin. They've checked every single body language between the two of them. It's the strangest coverage in terms of this obsession on Russia. But let me tell you, it's the president's job to be talking to the foreign leaders on a daily basis. So I think that it's overblown. There were cameras there that obviously we're seeing coverage of this dinner. Again, I think that it's hypersensitivity coming from the media and their story on Russia.
No, it's really an amazing reaction.